Okay, welcome everybody back to another Footy Consultancy podcast. Today we've got Rhys Evans in the building. How you doing, Rhys?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm brilliant, thanks. How's COVID treating you?
Well, I'm back to work now, so it's not as bad, but the past months have been tough.
Well, Rhys is a centre half for Blyth Spartans.
Full back, aren't you? Full back.
The right back, aye.
Yeah, right back, full back.
Let me start again. I got mixed up. All right, let's go again. 3, 2, 1. Okay, welcome everybody back to another Footy Consultancy podcast. Today we've got Rhys Evans in the building. How you doing, Rhys?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
I'm brilliant, thanks. And how's COVID treating you?
Yeah, it's not bad. I'm back to work now, so I'm not as bored anymore.
Well, if you want to know a bit more about Rhys, he's a fullback for
Blyth Spartans.
All right, I'll hand over to my co-host Carl, and we'll go from there.
Hey, Rhys, you all right?
Yeah, I'm not bad. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good. So basically what we're doing at the minute is we're looking at different player pathways, and your pathway in particular is a pathway I think could inspire a lot of young players going through the system. So not to give too much away, because I want you to talk through that, I just want you to explain to us what we talk about with some players is you'll see somebody playing in the park, or you'll see somebody playing at grassroots and you go, oh, they've got it. So we'll call that the it factor. What do you think your it factor is that's helped you go from where you started to where you are now?
Oh, it's a hard question. Probably my attitude more than anything.
Yeah.
As a kid, I was never the best in my grassroots team. But now, if you look at the lads that I played with, I'm probably, apart from one who plays for Dundee, I'm probably playing that at the highest level out of everyone I ever did at grassroots level. And I was nowhere near ever, probably even in the top 5 players when I was a kid. So I think probably self-belief and never giving up is probably massive as well, I would say.
Definitely. That's a common theme from everybody that we've had on so far. When we've asked them about what helped them to get to the very top and get to the level that they're playing at, they've always said it's that kind of determination and work rate. So if you just want to start off and kind of explain how you first got into football and what your pathway was.
To be honest, I think it probably helped me having an older brother and a dad who loved football, because for as long as I remember, I've always loved it. I've always kicked the ball. I've always supported Newcastle. I've always been interested in it. So I can't ever remember not having football in my life.
Yeah. So
I think that probably does come from my dad and having an older brother, as I said. And I think that's probably helped my little brother, who I know you've spoken to as well.
Yeah.
Having sort of 2 older brothers and a dad, because then you just sort of brought up into the footballing world, really.
Yeah, and it's quite funny because actually your brother was saying that he didn't like football when he was younger, and he used to get dragged along to watch you play, and someone watched him having a little kickabout at the side of the pitch and wanted him to trial, and your family had to kind of say, just go and try it out, and then he really never looked back from there. But
yeah, I think
football
he was different to me. Yeah, I think he was a little bit different to me because I fell in love with it probably as soon as I kicked the ball. Whereas he probably need pushed into it a little bit, and then he realised he did love it. Obviously, it could have went the other way. He might have never loved it and never kicked the ball again after that. But it's just we're from quite a footballing family, so I think that's probably where it starts.
Definitely. And what grassroots club did he start out at?
I was at Wallsend Boys Club from being 6 till under 16s. Played under numerous coaches, different places, because obviously they didn't even have the Kirkley Park where they're based now. So our home ground was all over the place.
Obviously, I'm from London, so it's like I always hear about Wallsend Boys Club. What's so special about the club?
I think the people at the top, people like Peter Kirkley, absolute legend, and I think it helped them having such like success stories from like Alan Shearer and Peter Beardsley, people like that. So young lads inspired to them, so would automatically the best lads would want to go to Wallsend to try and sort of emulate their careers.
Okay.
I think Wallsend Boys Club have always been the shining light for the boys club system up here. But I think what they've done in turn, they've inspired other boys clubs in other grassroots teams to try and push their standards up. And I think now the grassroots boys system in the Newcastle area, when you've got the likes of Newcastle Benfield, Newcastle East End, North Shields, Cranmere Juniors, Wallsend, Newcastle City Juniors, it's so competitive.
Yeah.
And it's almost at academy level in regards to the ability that these players have got.
Yeah, definitely I agree, because I remember when I was young, it was only really us and Cromlington Juniors that used to really compete. And then as I got older, like under 15s, under 16s, Newcastle City and like Montague and that started to compete and be almost as good as us.
Yeah.
But I think them boys clubs started to try and, like I say, emulate what Wallsend were doing.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it seems to have worked, because Wallsend, when I was a kid, were winning everything, and now they're probably not.
Okay.
They're still very competitive, but they definitely have competition and real competition. Yeah. But also what that competition's done is it's forced Wallsend to push their limits even further. And if anybody's had the privilege to go to Kirkley Park and see Wallsend's ground now, it's as good as some training grounds in League One.
Yeah, it's outstanding, especially because it's got the new 4G down, it's got a stand, it's got, I don't know how many pitches. And I think they've got plans now to do it indoor, little indoor bit, like the old Wallsend Boys Club.
Yeah. That's where I grew up, playing the old boys on Station Road.
Yeah, well, even when I was younger, I played a lot there. Yeah. I loved it on a Monday night, 5-a-side.
Amazing.
When you was there, who was the best player at Wallsend?
There was a boy called Dylan McAvoy who actually went to Sunderland and done a scholar at Sunderland. Then he signed a pro at Sunderland. Then he came out the system, and he was actually at Benfield when I went. And now I don't think he plays, but as a kid, what a player.
Yeah.
What a player.
There was a lot of players when you were at Wallsend left to go to academies.
Yeah, there was, which sometimes people say it's too young. I don't really agree with that. If you get offered to go to academy, you don't turn it down, because you're getting that quality coaching. You're probably training, you're getting more hours as well.
Yeah.
But there were some lads who came back. And I think it's tough when you start doing that, because you join a new set of lads, and then the year after you might be with another new set of lads, and it's quite hard to get settled somewhere, especially when you're a kid.
Yeah.
So what happened when you turned 16 and you left school and kind of the grassroots part of your journey was over? Where did you go from there?
Well, it was hard. When we were under 15s and 16s at Wallsend, we used to go like a end of the season sort of tour out the places. And we went to Scotland, and we played a few games. I think we played Hibs, Motherwell, and then we played St Johnstone. I'd done really well. So they asked us to go up on like a trial, and then I ended up signing there. And it was a nightmare the first year, because I was like 16, well, under 18 really. I was classed as a minor. So going to another country, you need international clearance. And to get that as a minor, it is ridiculously hard from FIFA. Okay. So for the first full year of my first year, I think I got international clearance the last maybe 6 weeks. So I think I played 3 games that full year.
Wow.
And being sort of 3 hours away from home and just being able to train and not play any games, you kind of don't feel part of it. And it probably massively affected my development, because from 16 to 17 is a massive part of your development.
What club was that for, sorry?
St Johnstone.
St Johnstone, okay.
Which, to be fair, was amazing, because the first team won the Scottish Cup when I was there. They were in the Europa League both times. They knocked like Rosenborg out. It was amazing, to be fair.
Yeah.
Well, how was the education at that point? Were you doing an MV, getting a BTEC or A-level?
Yeah, so all the lads, all the like first years and second years had to do like an in-house thing. It was kind of with the PFA.
Yeah.
But with me, moving up as a minor, I had to go to college to be able to get international clearance. So I went and done like a college course. I can't even remember what it was. I think it was like sport and exercise science or something like that. I don't know what it equates to. I've never really used it. I've never even looked, to be fair. At that time, I was just wanting to play football, so I would do anything to do it. So I was going to college, I think it was twice a week maybe, on my own, without any of the lads. So it was like meeting another set of people who I didn't know. So it was quite hard.
What college was that?
Would have been Perth College, where St Johnstone is based.
Right.
You know, in that year that you started going college, you was waiting for that clearance, being away from home in another country. Do you think that helped you grow up a lot faster?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely, because you learn well, it's the first year you're getting paid as well. So you learn sort of financial stuff as well.
Yeah.
And luckily enough, there was a boy that signed for us called Alex Kitchen, who's actually from Newcastle. And he's from Newcastle and he was 2 years older than me. So he was kind of like my older brother when he came in. And luckily he could drive, so he would be able to bring us home. And I learned a lot. I did learn a lot off Big Kitch.
Okay.
And where did it go from there? How long were you at St Johnstone for?
I was there for 2 years. My second year was a lot better than the first. Obviously, I could play games.
Yeah.
And then I got released, so that would have been, I don't even know the dates, but I got released. But they were quite good about it. They told us quite early in the year, so about March time. So it meant we could carry on training with St Johnstone, but also go on quite a lot of other clubs. And my agent was getting all our clubs to come watch my games for St Johnstone. So to be fair, they've done it really well, telling us early, which allowed us to get sorted for the next season.
Okay.
And where did you move to after that then?
I went to Queen of the South. I always remember actually my agent had got the Queen of the South manager to come watch me and Alex Kitchen because we had the same agent.
Yeah.
And we played Celtic away, and they had a really strong team because I think you could play like 5 overages.
Yeah.
And they had a really strong team out, and I knew the Queen of the South manager was coming to watch. And I looked at the team sheet and I had like Tom Rodgick playing. Is it Dirk Brickdar, I think, was a winger who they'd just got from Ajax.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was thinking, oh God, just my luck that they've got all these boys out. But I done well, and then I went and played a trial game at Queen of the South, and they offered us a contract, and I signed just a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
And how was that year with Queen of the South? How did that work out?
It was good. It was good. It was probably easier than being at St Johnstone because I was a lot closer at home. It's kind of only just about half an hour north of Carlisle, so it only really took us an hour and a half to get there and back, so I could come home a lot more.
Yeah.
The only probably regret I've got about Queen of the South is I played left back a lot, which obviously is my natural position, and it probably killed us a little bit. But then I signed so at the end of that season, they offered us an extra year.
Yeah.
So I signed an extra year, and a new manager came in, Gavin Skelton, who I think he works for Carlisle now. And I've done really well that pre-season. I was with the first team pretty much every session. Then I got quite a bad injury. Well, it wasn't a bad. I think I was out for about 6 or 8 weeks, and it set me back. Yeah. Came back, and I remember I was in the squad for the first team for the first time, but I didn't get on the bench.
Yeah.
And about a week or two later, the gaffer got sacked. New gaffer came in, and he just wasn't really having it, but wasn't having any of the young lads, to be honest. And then it got to that February, and I said to my agent, "Look, I think it's probably better if we just call it a day." And I really agreed to leave.
Before that happened, what was it like, the jump from being in the youth team and going into the first team? Was it a massive difference?
Well, I still wasn't actually in the first team at Queen of the South. Yeah. I was signed as like an under-20 sort of reserve player, but I was involved with the first team more there than I was at St Johnstone. And I trained with the first team quite a lot there, and to be honest, it's a bit of an eye opener at first because you've got lads who are probably not on unbelievable money who are signing 1-year deals, so they're also fighting for their next year contract. So it's not like a Premier League club where players aren't struggling to put food on the family's tables. You got lads probably on more normal wages, signing 1-year deals. So it's a different environment, and it's kind of a dog-eat-dog world. People have a go at you in training, and when you're young, it either makes you or breaks you.
Yeah.
What was the standard like?
Better than what everyone thinks.
Yeah.
A lot better than what everyone thinks. A lot of people are quite not arrogant in England, but they probably look at Scotland and think Farmers League because it isn't as good as England.
Yeah.
But if you look at the size of Scotland, it's never going to be as good as England.
Yeah.
I think probably the Scottish Championship is probably League Two, National League probably. But a lot of, I think there's 3 or 4 teams in the Championship now that are part-time. But when I was at Queen of the South, Rangers were in the Championship, Hearts, Hibs were in the Championship, so it was a really competitive division then.
Yeah.
I think what a lot of people don't appreciate is the fact that unless you're in the game, going down the pyramid, the standard doesn't drop that much. It's just the consistencies that drop rather than the standard of play. And you'll have lads that are playing in the division you're playing in now that are technically just as good as players in the Premier League. They maybe just don't have the consistency as the players in the Premier League, or they just didn't get the right game in life. Something just didn't work out for them.
Yeah. Or the mentality is a little bit off.
Definitely.
Which, to be fair, I watch a lot of, I listen to a lot of the high performance podcasts by Jake Humphries.
Yeah.
And the mentality of some of the players, well, not even just the players, because he's got all sorts of people on there, but the mentality of people that are at the top is just next level.
Yeah.
And I think that's a massive thing to be able to play at the top. You do need that mentality.
I think they dedicate the whole life to it.
They do.
There's a generation of people coming through now where I don't think they have that mindset.
I think people are coached differently now.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying there's a right wrong way of doing it, but if you look at the likes of when the likes of like Gerrard, his sort of career as a kid would have been a lot different to what a kid's is now.
Yeah.
And I think that all feeds into I'm not saying it's wrong now, because a lot of it's probably better now than what it was then.
Yeah.
But it does affect your mentality a lot.
So what do you think is the right balance to have if you were going to coach a player to come through the next generation?
It's hard because you look at the boys then would have been washing boots. Scholars would have been in from 9 in the morning or 5 at night. Whereas now, even when my little brother was a scholar, there's not much washing. I think they did wash boots at Sunderland, but a lot of clubs, especially in the Premier League, boys will not have to wash boots. Yeah. They'll probably be finished by 1. They'll not have to pump the balls up for the first team, stuff like that. And I think it's getting that right balance of discipline, but also not, is it bullying? Not bullying kids. The way I can imagine a lot of coaches spoke to kids back in the day is a lot worse than what it is now, and you wouldn't get away with probably what some of the coaches used to say. Yeah. Now,
it's a balance, isn't it? It's a balance of, can we make humble, resilient players, but in a safe environment where the old practices that maybe went on, you were bang on before when you said bullying. It was bullying.
Yeah.
Back then, it wasn't looked at as bullying. Back then, it was looked at as banter, and about, that's just the way it was. But things have changed. Things have changed massively, and I think people have to appreciate that you have to go with that. And
you have to go with the times as you get stuck.
Definitely.
Especially as a manager, you've got to know how to, because say if a manager in the 90s, for example, was to manage exactly how he did in the 90s to what he does now, the dressing room would be lost after a week.
Yeah.
100%. I'm very fortunate with my job as an academy coach at Middlesbrough, You know, that's one thing that I had my eyes open to when I first went to Middlesbrough. The environment they've created is second to none.
Yeah.
The way that they make the players feel and how they've done it, it must have taken years, but it's amazing. And I feel like we've got the balance right, but we do still, and I'll still experience in different settings, maybe environments where I think the maybe's crossing a line, things that I said are crossing a line. You still see grassroots.
Yeah.
But again, the things is football's played with emotion, and some people find it difficult to keep them emotions in.
I think you also need to prepare kids for what it's going to be like as an adult.
Yeah.
Because as an adult, you are going to go in changing rooms. You are going to get screamed at. There is going to be scuffles or little scraps in the change room. And I'm not saying... So it's how do you prepare a kid for that? Because you can't speak to a kid the same way as you speak to an adult. So how do you prepare them to make that jump? And I think I've struggled with that, especially as a kid, because I was from under 16, has never been in the system really. Went straight to full-time football where it was a total different environment where players would have a go at you if you messed up in training, and it was a lot more serious than what I had previously.
Yeah.
And it probably took us a few months to adjust to that. About giving the ball away in training, you'll get shouted at. Giving the ball away in games, you'll definitely get shouted at.
I think there is that balance, and it's very difficult to create. You know, I'll not mention names, but I've got a good friend who played at a decent level and come through an academy system at a Category 1 academy. And there was a particular coach at the academy that had a reputation of being too hard on the players. Well, my friend said to me, well, he was actually the best coach that he had, and he was the only coach he had in the academy that prepared him for a senior dressing room. So there is balance, and it's about trying to find that balance. But I think they try to create the balance now through experience.
Yeah, I agree, because it is hard to... Your first time in the senior dressing room is always going to be a bit of an eye-opener. Which is why it's good if you're like a kid that you get dipped in and out. So maybe you might be with the first team one day and not the next day, and you sort of get used to it that way, rather than jumping in at the deep end and then it's kind of sink or swim.
Yeah.
So then after Queen of the South, is that when you came back down and signed for Newcastle Benfield?
Well, I went to Washington first. My agent at the time was made for the Washington manager, and I didn't really know that much about the Northern League, to be fair, but I just came home and I wanted to play. I just wanted to play football and enjoy it again, because the kind of 2 or 3 months prior, I wasn't enjoying it. And to be fair, at Washington, we were struggling. I actually played wide right a lot for Washington, and I scored 2 goals on the last day of the season, I think, to keep us up. Was it the last day? Or quite late on in the season to keep us up. And I think that was probably my last 2 goals, and that was 3 or 4 years.
You're a cult hero down there, yeah?
Yeah, for all 20 fans that can watch them.
They carry you down the high street.
But yeah, then I stayed there for... so I was there for about 6 months, got to the end of the season, and then I agreed to stay again. And to be fair, we brought a lot of players in, and there was quite a lot of excitement, but it didn't really work out. And then it got to about November time, and we played against Newcastle Benfield. I knew a few of the lads, and I kind of knew their assistant manager. So I went, obviously in non-league, there's no transfer window, so you can kind of move when you want. So I went to Benfield in that November.
And how long were you at Benfield?
A year and a half. So I've done from like November till the end of the season, and then another year.
And how did you find your time there?
I absolutely loved it. It was probably my best time in football until I signed for Blyth, really.
Yeah.
I think I've been blessed in a way that I've always played in dressing rooms where I get on with everyone and I get on with the management. And it's massive, like, in terms of how much you enjoy it. And then if you enjoy it, the performances on the pitches, it obviously goes up as well.
I think when we spoke to Paul Davis, he touched on that quite a bit about building on relationships with players, young, senior players, the management, and that finding that balance can help you go a long way.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. Because if you like each other and you all get along, you're more likely to fight for each other and work harder for each other.
Yeah.
We definitely had that, especially my second year at Benfield. That we signed quite a lot of lads who are about my age as well, which helped.
Yeah.
So we're kind of like a young, hungry group with a few old heads in, which we needed to guide us along.
Yeah.
And I probably learned more in that sort of year and a half playing men's football than I did probably in my whole other career, including playing like St Johnstone under 20s and stuff like that, because it's quite a fake, not a fake game of football, but 3 points on the line and bonuses on the line.
Yeah.
And you do learn a lot more.
Quite safe environment, isn't it? It's a safe environment, so there's not so much on the line. I think it's that's something that you said, that you found the difference between 23's football and going to Newcastle Benfield night and day.
Yeah, exactly. I think my brother is kind of doing at Benfield what I've done at Benfield.
Yeah,
getting experience against men, learning, because you always learn. Doesn't matter how old you are, you're always going to learn, and he's going to get better playing there. And then hopefully he does what I do and move up, because he's more talented than me. He's a better footballer than me, my brother, but he's just younger than me, so he needs to go and get that experience playing against men.
And how did the move to Blyth Spartans transpire?
To be honest, I don't really know. I actually went on holiday that summer, and Tom Wade had been the manager of Blyth in the past, and then he had been the manager of Benfield for a little bit that season. And I don't know whether it was him or I know a few other people that knew Lee Clark. So I don't know if it was like, to be honest, I don't really know how it came about, but I got a text of Lee Clark, and then I went up to meet him, and I signed my contract on the same day.
Okay. And that's, again, is a jump in level. It was a jump of 3 divisions up.
Yeah. And to be fair, at the start, I maybe wasn't ready.
Yeah.
But I had to learn quickly, and I had no choice. And the gaffer, to be fair to him, kept playing us, and I learned, and I got better. I think when you're thrown in like that, you have to learn quickly, unless you're going to be back down to the Northern League. So yeah.
Even though you felt at the time that maybe you wasn't ready, did it feel good to have a manager that trusted you and kept throwing you in the deep end?
Yeah, definitely. I think, to be fair, my first couple of games I probably wasn't great, and then I started to play every week.
Yeah.
And then I missed a couple during injury, and then I was back in. And I think I made 37 appearances my first year, and that was with COVID.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which knocked probably 11 games off. So I probably wouldn't have been far away from the 50 appearances in that year. So I'd done quite well my first year at that level.
And
to get that many.
How did you deal with the extra travel? Because I know that in that division, the travel is a hell of a lot more than what you would have been used to with Benfield.
Well, a lot of people say that, and a lot of people who play in the Northern League who could be playing higher get stuck with that mentality, like, oh, the travelling's rubbish, whatever. But if you've got a good group of lads, which we have at Blyth, had that year and then have now, it makes it so much easier, because you have banter on the bus, you play cards, you can even chill, listen to music, whatever. And it makes the travelling a lot better. I mean, I wouldn't like to do it with a group of lads that maybe didn't get on as well as we did. But it's not, especially Saturday games, it's not a problem for me.
Yeah.
Some Tuesday night games are hard if you've been to Graft, and then you got to get away from Graft early, and then you're getting in at like 3 or 4 in the morning, then you're back up at 7 the next morning. But it probably only happens once or twice a season.
Yeah. And there's some top teams in that division as well.
Oh yeah, massive clubs like York City, Gateshead, Hereford are full time. Oh, Hereford full? No, I don't know if Hereford full time, but they're a big club. Boston,
Spennymoor,
Spennymoor, Darlington.
Yeah.
Darlington are a massive club.
Like a top division.
Yeah, there's some massive. And you go to Chester, you go to grounds where there's 2,000 and 3,000 there. And from the Northern League, I was used to playing in front of 100, 200.
Yeah.
Well, you know, when other young players first come in through the door, do you tend to follow the tradition of being rough with them, or do you feel like, you know, this is how I wanted to be treated, or put an arm around them?
Yeah, definitely the second one. But each player reacts to it differently. So you might get some players who react better to the kind of hard love. You might get players that react better to an arm around them. I think Jamie Clark, the young lad who's at Blyth now, he's from Wallsend, and I pick him up a lot for training, so I get on with Jamie quite well.
Yeah.
And I think he's one who I can probably help, because he's probably in a similar situation now to what I was.
Yeah.
So I do try and help the younger. I'm one of them that likes to try and help the younger players. But to be fair, I'm still young myself. I'm only 24, so it's quite hard saying that when I'm quite inexperienced myself.
And Blyth are kind of going into a little bit of a new era, you know, with Robbie Dale retiring, and you've got a very, very young squad. How do you think the future will pan out for this current squad?
Well, first of all, I trust the new gaffer. I think he's been a breath of fresh air since he came in. And I think if he gets the backing from the board, we'll be fine. We brought in Simon Heslop, who was captain of York City for a while, experienced. Liam Agnew, who we got from Harrogate. So we have started to bring some experienced lads in. We just, this year, we probably needed maybe one or two more.
Yeah.
And then we lost Blackie, who we had on loan from Gateshead, who scored goals for us. So it was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough, but you learn a lot more when it's tough than when you're winning every week. So I think next year will be better for that.
A lot in last season. I know that Carl Roberts left to go to Notts County, where he's doing incredibly well. How difficult is it to keep players of that standard in your division?
It's so hard, especially for Carl, because Carl should never have really played at our level anyway.
Yeah.
And it just shows Carl done the right thing. A lot of lads in his situation who were out of contract, who had scored for Newcastle first team 2 or 3 months prior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of lads would be like, Blyth Spartans not going there. But he came, he worked hard, he done well, and he got his reward for that. And I think he'll go play even higher. Well, in fact, he definitely will go play even higher. But like I said, a lot of lads in that situation would think, I'm not going to Blyth. But he's just scored for Newcastle in the 3rd round of the FA Cup and been on the bench against Man City in the Premier League. Literally, maybe 2 or 3 months prior.
I think it's crazy when, you know, something we spoke to Jason Lee about was Newcastle have had some absolutely outstanding young strikers that don't seem to have been given the opportunity. And now you look, Carl Roberts tearing it apart. You know, he scored at Wembley. Adam Armstrong banging in 20-odd goals a season. We've got Ivan Toney that was there banging in 20-odd goals a season in the Championship. How difficult do you think it is for these young players even to get an opportunity in the Premier League? It's
so hard. It's impossible. If you look at, like, so Adam Armstrong, for example, was my age, and he was always like the player that was probably the best one, really. Him and Carl really grown up.
Yeah.
And then if he doesn't get an opportunity, how good do you need to be to get an opportunity? You look really at the last one that came through at Newcastle was probably, well, apart from Paul Dummett, but it's probably Andy Carroll.
Yeah.
Was probably the last one, and you're talking about that was probably over 10 years ago now.
It seems to be, especially centre forward, seems to be a position where Newcastle, I don't know what, for some reason, they're either not producing players at that level or they're not giving them the opportunity. But when you look at the likes of Carl and Armour, they are producing them. The buzz was around that there was a young lad from Churchill who was going to be the next best thing, and that was Carl. And then we heard there's a guy at City Juniors, Armour, unbelievable player. Mm-hmm. Newcastle, they're ripping it up, and it just never seemed to get that real full opportunity in the first team.
Well, the thing is, I think Carl made his debut under John Carver.
Yeah.
That was when he was about 19. No, but he would have been. He was about 18, and it was in the League Cup at Leicester away, and then it took him another 3 years to play another first team game, and he played in the FA Cup and scored when Rafa was the manager.
Yeah,
scored in that game, and then 3 months later they releasing him. It's mental because the 2 opportunities he's got, he scored in one of the games.
Yeah.
So what else? A lot of people might say, well, he didn't take his opportunity. Well, he did. He took his opportunity when he played.
Yeah.
So what else can you do? And so sometimes it is better to leave.
It's like yesterday we was talking about.
Go on, Sean.
We was talking about the Longstaff brothers.
Mm-hmm.
And, Matty came through, scored against Man United. I'm looking at him as a Man U fan thinking he's the next Paul Scholes or something.
Yeah.
Disappears off the radar, and it's like none of them are getting it.
To be fair, I think Matty, even when he's played this season, has done well.
Yeah.
I think Bruce it looked like, to me, Bruce was trying to throw him under the bus. He hadn't played this season. I think he started away to Chelsea or away to Man City or something like that. Yeah. And he was probably the best player, and then he's just gone off the radar again. And it must be hard seeing, being a young lad there, and then seeing, Joe Willock come in on loan, who's another club's a young lad, and we're playing him instead. And I know he might be better than the Longstaffs, but where does that leave you if you're getting other people's young lads who are still developing as well, and they're playing ahead of you? I don't know, it's a little bit weird.
Do you think that Premier League managers feel the pressure is to keep the senior pros in the team, even if they're not contributing? So, as a Newcastle fan at the minute, I can't see how Jeff Hendrick's playing ever. Mm-hmm. Okay against West Ham, first game of the season. Other than that, I haven't seen him have a decent game since. And he can have 15 bad games on the bounce, but yet he'll still play. Matty Longstaff can have 15 bad minutes, and you haven't seen him for 3 months.
Yeah.
I feel like the pressure on that. I've bought this player. I'll have to justify why he's here.
Yeah, well, a lot for a manager as well. It's the easy way out to be able to drop, say, Matty, who probably is not going to kick up a massive fuss in the change room, rather than somebody who's an experienced pro who's going to have more pulling weight in the change room. And I think as a manager, it's quite a hard position, because do you want to leave someone out who isn't contributing but could massively contribute negatively because he's not playing?
Yeah.
Or leave a younger lad out.
Not playing them, then playing them.
Yeah, it takes balls as a manager, but as a manager you obviously need to be ballsy, and that's probably why Newcastle haven't had any young lads, because managers that we've had in the past haven't been ballsy enough to hire them in. Because if you throw a striker in and he doesn't score, he doesn't do well, then all the fans are saying, well, why is he playing? He's not ready.
Yeah.
So it's to be fair, it's not easy being a football manager, but
no.
You've got to deal with it. You put yourself in that situation, don't you?
How do you think Newcastle will do for the rest of the season?
Well, they're awful to watch, and there's no goals in the team. So unless we scrape a few 1-0s and score from set pieces, I think we're going to struggle. I think Sean's right. As much as it hurts us to say, watching Fulham last week at Anfield, they were outstanding, and they were a breath of fresh air to watch. A group of young lads like that with a young manager, not really caring who they're playing against, but going and playing out from the back and just doing things their way.
Yeah.
Have Newcastle got the players to play like that?
Well, I would look at Newcastle's squad, and I would rather Newcastle's squad over Fulham's.
I think definitely when you look at the forward line, when fit, St Maximin, Almiron, Wilson, we've got Fraser, players like that. Have we got the players to play through to them?
Yeah, I think you're probably right, because even with best two centre halves, in my opinion, would be Kieran Clark and Fernandez.
Yeah.
As defenders, they like to defend, but probably on the ball, they're not as good as probably what Fulham's are, or what a lot of centre halves are.
Yeah.
So, but then you've got Shaw, who is a bit of a footballer, but recently he's not been at it.
Yeah, I think he had a few injuries and he's never seemed to get over them, has he?
No, and when Rafa was in charge, Shaw was probably the best player. One of the best players. And he even played in the number 4 position, just the back 4, and he was good.
Because if Newcastle are going to try and play through the thirds, like you said, the centre backs aren't particularly good on the ball. With full backs, I'm sorry to say that they're not at the standard they should be. And with central midfielders, they don't exactly like to create chances. John Joe Shelvey wants to drop off like a quarterback and spray 60-yard passes. That can't work all of the time.
Yeah. You also need a keeper. The keeper's the most important one if you're going to play out from the back. And as much as I like Dubravka and even Darlow's been excellent, but neither of them can really do it.
Yeah.
Whereas obviously Fulham have got Areola, who's I think he's played in the Champions League for however many years. And also Fulham have got Harrison Reed, who, if you watch a game of football and you're not really a massive football lover, you'll not really see him.
Yeah.
But when you watch Fulham, what's the word? He has such a massive role in that team because they play 4-4-2. There's not many teams now that'll play 4-4-2 because they normally get battered. Yeah. But Harrison Reed is he's so fit and strong and gets about the pitch. Like having 2 holding midfielders in one.
Yeah.
I think as well, Scott Parker is kind of, when you see a manager with that much passion and belief in you, he never throws his players under the bus. Talk about the game in full honesty afterwards. If he's made mistakes of what could have been better, what they need to change, that must be so refreshing because they must almost feel like being empowered by the manager. The joy is I can really go out there and express myself. So no one
takes accountability. He takes full accountability.
Yeah,
definitely. And we all know confidence is a massive thing, not even just in football, in anything. So if you're more confident, you're going to play a lot better.
Yeah.
If you're not very confident, then you're not going to play well. And I think Newcastle are not confident, and Fulham are at the business end of the season.
And I think if you look at even the wide players that they've got, if you was to ask what's the difference between Raheem Sterling and Decordova-Reid and Ademola Lookman, it's not really an ability thing. It's more about goals.
Yeah.
And he's building players that have got real ability in the squad. And once it does click, and you've seen it with the last few results, they can get the goals as well.
Well, look, the player that everybody thought he was going to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I like about Parker as well, he's brave and he just goes 4-4-2. There's not many managers that would do that. I think Sean Dyche does it. I think they play 4-4-2, but especially in the Premier League, in terms of possession, you normally get battered because you've got one less player in midfield, but they seem to still be able to control game. They went to Anfield last week and they were by no means battered until the last sort of 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I think Loftus-Cheek as well. He's a big part. And, I know Sean's a massive fan of Loftus-Cheek, and I don't think people that watch the Premier League have really seen the best of him yet. I think in the environment, the size of him, the ability that he's got, he's a game changer.
Yeah. I think he's in the stage of his career where he needs to start doing that before he ends up like a championship player.
Yeah.
Because you can have all the in the world, but if you're not affecting games at the top level, nobody's gonna pay the money for you.
Yeah,
he's got
it's about getting a chance as well. Like I've seen the players. I've seen like Nathaniel Chalobah, who was probably better than Loftus-Cheek. And, you know, he's ended up in the Championship because he wasn't getting enough games at Chelsea. And they've got so many brilliant young players. Ross Barkley as well, he's gone out to Villa. He looks like a world beater. And it's like, these guys need to take the eyes off the badge for a little while and say, I'm going to go and play football.
Yeah.
And touched on before, Rhys, in regards to dropping down the divisions. And I think a player that's now at the very, very top of his game, Jack Grealish, he got there from playing them seasons in the Championship, playing week in, week out, learning his trade, getting so much experience under his belt. So when he did come back to the Premier League, he came back as a finished article.
Yeah. I think that goes for players at every level.
Yeah.
Because you go out and play at a level where you're probably one of the best players, you get more confidence and you learn and you're on the ball more and you get more touches.
Yeah.
So when you do go back to that level, you feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
And I think whatever level you are, even whether it's non-league, whether it's football, even at grassroots, sometimes you just need to play football. Just play and play and play, and you'll develop.
You mentioned the FA Cup earlier. You know, when every season starts at Blyth, what's the spirit of the FA Cup like? What's your target?
Well, obviously, Blyth have had some good runs. They obviously played Birmingham not long ago.
Okay.
That was probably only, I think they beat Hartlepool in the second round. They were a league, I think they were League One, and then they played Birmingham City, even though they were 2-0 up at half time, and Birmingham, I think, were a Championship team.
Yeah.
And then they ended up getting beat 3-2, and then a few years prior to that, they had beat Bournemouth in round 2, who I think were League One or League Two club at the time. I think Eddie Howe was the manager then.
Yeah.
And then they played Blackburn, and I think they got beat 1-0.
Yeah, that was live on BBC. Me mate Cheeks. It was walk them out.
And then I think it was in the 70s or something. I think they got to the round of 16 or the quarter-final where they got beat off Wrexham or something.
Yeah.
So Blyth have got quite a rich history, and it brings so much excitement for the fans, especially because if you can get a good run in the FA Cup, and I think we need to win 3 games before we get to round 1, maybe 2.
Yeah.
It can bring in so much money for the football club. If you can get to even round 1 and because even round 1, League 1, League 2 comes in, you could get Sunderland at the minute. And a draw like that would be live on telly, so you get the TV money, you get the game. And it brings so much attention to your football club. So I think it's so important for clubs, especially at our level, to try and do well in the FA Cup.
I don't think people appreciate how much the Spartans team actually means to the town of Blyth until you go to one of the games. I've been to quite a few of the games, and it's an amazing thing to see. I think Blyth's in that type of place where it's just that far enough away from Newcastle that it has got that real loyal, proper fan base.
Yeah. Well, I didn't even realise before that. I remember in the summer I signed. I had a look on like YouTube at games and stuff. And I got excited because there was like proper crowds, there was atmosphere, there was singing. And you probably don't realise it till you're playing it, because you think, oh, there's only like, I don't know what we average, probably around 1,000. You probably think, oh, there's only 1,000 there. But it makes such a massive difference, like compared to what I was used to playing the Northern League. You know, there's atmosphere, there's singing, and it gets you going. It does. I know it's such a cliche thing to say, but especially at home, it is kind of like a 12th man.
Have they got a song for you yet?
And I don't think so. Not that I've heard it. Like.
So, what does the future hold for you?
At the minute, just need to get next season sorted. Know where I'm playing next year is important. Hopefully, that'll be a Blyth again. But obviously, it's weird because it's still early in the year, so you want to get next year sorted. But if we were still playing at the minute, you wouldn't even be thinking about that. It's because like last season's finished, so automatically in like next season mode.
Yeah.
So, but I want to stay at Blyth. It feels like home there, and both seasons I've been there, we've struggled, but I've still enjoyed it. So that makes me think, what happens if we're doing well? I'm going to enjoy it even more. And it's a special club, and I love it. There's so many people there behind the scenes who are like class people. The media man, Jordan, Peter, the kit man, Jeff, who helps him. Like, it's such a good club.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm so desperate for it to do well while I'm there.
I think it's a club that's been in transition over the last few years. It's had a few changes in management. Like we said earlier about Robbie Dale, that's a club legend leaving. There's been a lot of players leaving. There's a lot of young players in there now. And, like you said before, there's a lot of belief in the management that's in there now. Players seem to be really happy. They've got some amazing young prospects coming through. And if it can just click and get it right for next season, it hasn't helped with COVID, the stop, start. Especially with having a young squad. The teams that have more senior pros in them, they can probably handle this a little bit better. Spenny Moore that we've got, as in the team who have played it all over. We've got a very young side, and this has probably took a toll on them more than anybody else so early on in their career to stop playing football. But fingers crossed, and get through this period, and the only way is, I think, is up for Blyth.
Yeah, definitely. I think you're right. With COVID, did kill us, because sometimes I think we had to isolate so many times within the season. So we weren't playing for 2 weeks, and then we'll come back and we hadn't even trained or played, and then you'd be playing on the Saturday against somebody who had been playing all the way through. And it's so hard, because you've got to try and keep yourself motivated. Yeah. And then there's no fans there as well, which makes a big difference.
Yeah.
And then you lose the first few games, and then everyone's kind of up a height. I think it's so important that to start to see. To be fair, we played Whitley Bay, I think, in the FA Cup where we won, and then we got beat 4-0 off Guiseley away on a Tuesday night, and straight away after that, you could sort of feel like, not like anxiety, but confidence kind of went down, because we had a young group. But normally in a normal dressing room, it would be like, right, we've lost, who cares? Go to Saturday and we'll win. But when you've got like such a young group, it's quite hard to keep everyone sort of confident, especially because of the season we had the season prior.
And I think as well, it's maybe in years gone by, Blyth have probably had the pick of the players in the division, because they really didn't have much competition other than the big clubs. But now the Gates that have dropped down. You've got Spennymoor, who have come right up through the divisions. You've got South Wales bursting through the divisions. You've got Morpeth bursting through the divisions. And we all know what it's like.
Yeah. That is the hard thing about Blyth, because although a lot of it comes down to budget, it also comes down to logistics of getting there.
Yeah.
Because somebody could offer you 50 quid more, but if you live an hour closer, then you're gonna stay there for the sake of that 50 quid. You're gonna spend it in travelling anyway. Yeah. So it is hard for Blyth to sort of attract players now, because like you said, I've got like South Shields are paying more money, Morpeth are probably paying more money, Gateshead are full time, so a lot of players want to be full time. That's the dream.
Yeah.
Dalton are probably paying more money, Spenny. So it is hard for Blyth. So, like the gaffer said, you've got to be sort of diligent and look for other ways around it, which the answer is obviously sometimes young lads.
Well, I think it is, dropping down and looking at somebody like Jamie Clark, who we mentioned earlier. Jamie Clark had barely even played a game for North Shields before he went to Blyth Spartans. They've kind of picked up from a youth system. They've picked up his reputation of what he was doing at Tymet, his reputation of what he was doing at county football. So they are looking a lot more diligent and looking through to where these next couple of players are coming through. Because it isn't, we've seen, there's been some big transfers from Northern League players. It's I don't think people appreciate the money that can sometimes be in non-league.
Yeah, I think that's why we struggled last year and this year, because we have had a lot of young players, and the budget doesn't, because obviously older players are want more money. That's just the nature of the beast. The older you get, the more money you want because you feel like you deserve it.
Yeah.
To be fair, that's just the way football works. So that's why it's so hard to also get a striker, because they're worth the most money.
Yeah.
So if you're giving a striker however much, that might take up 3/4 of your budget sometimes. So then the rest of your players need to be on less, so you are getting younger players. So it's a hard job. The gaffer's got a hard job, but like I say, he's doing well with it, and I think he will be a success at Blyth.
Brilliant. Well, what we'll do is we'll wrap up there. It's been really, really good having you on, having a bit of an insight of your career and especially about what's been going on with Blyth. And we'll wish you all the best for the rest of what's left of this season. I don't know if it'll just be training and fitness that you'll be doing, or if you can get from friendly games in. And then the best of luck for next season, hopefully at Blyth Spartans.
Yeah, thank you very much. All the best for the rest of the podcasts.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And we'll speak soon.
Cheers, mate.
See you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.